Cuphead, a game essentially known for its extreme difficulty. Get good is the point of the game. But what about not dying a single time? How hard could it really be? Now, let's quickly go over the rules for this challenge, which are very simple. Number 1. If we die at any point, we have to delete our save file and restart all over again. Number 2. We have to beat the entirety of the main game in expert mode. And lastly, number 3. This is more of a personal reason, but the DLC content is not allowed. That means no Miss Chalice or any DLC item. It'll be too easy with an extra heart, twice, a double jump, a roll with iframes, like what is this character? Also, this video is heavily inspired by the video from the Bones 5. While trying this challenge in expert mode, I wasn't prepared for how different and brutal some bosses are. That's why we are here today. I tried to gather as many useful tricks as possible, and some useless ones too. And don't worry, I made this video taking into account folks completely new to Cuphead as well as veteran players. Without further ado, I present to you Cuphead without dying in expert mode. So, how exactly do we play in expert mode? Well, either have a save file with the game completed, in which case we just have to select any boss and highlight the expert difficulty, like that's it. Or access the games folder and change hard mode available from false to true. And now we can officially begin the run. As a side note, all of my attempts for this challenge were only made with Magman, because Cuphead is everywhere. In your nightmares too. And I feel like the blue Cuphead deserves a spotlight too, you know? So yeah, sorry Cuphead. Anyways, we start the run by talking to this guy, since he gave us 3 coins for some reason. Then we head out to the shop and instantly buy the smoke bomb. The smoke bomb transforms our dash into a teleport. This, for example, allows us to dash through projectiles without a problem. And sometimes it can turn some bosses into a complete joke. That's why, hands down, it's the best charm in the game. And because the other ones are kinda awful in comparison. Like, are you really telling me that I could spend my money on the pea sugar? A charm that pairs automatically except it doesn't for some reason? Once we've acquired the smoke bomb, we can begin with the run and guns. And these run and guns are a no-brainer. Grab all the coins, skip the mini-boss at the end by dashing through him, and that's it. And with both run and guns completed, we will have a bit of money to spend. So let's talk about guns. Since we banned the DLC from this challenge, we are left with 5 different weapons. For this run, the weapons we're going to use are Roundabout, Spread, and Charshot. You can forget about the other ones honestly. Now, what makes them super good? Roundabout is basically a better version of the pea shooter, both in DPS and utility. The latter is especially useful when we have to hit multiple things at once. Plus, the X move in certain situations can deal massive damage. Next one is Spread. Spread has the highest DPS in the game at 41-33. Outclassing every weapon in damage, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best weapon in the game. While we melt the bosses that let us stay in front of them, as well as taking out minions with low HP, its lack of range makes it impossible to have it as our primary weapon. Like, what are you supposed to do against Grim?
It is actually possible because
the other great thing about Spread is the X move against background bosses. Background bosses don't have a contact hitbox that deals damage. This, for example, makes the X move of Spread hit all of its projectiles, dealing a lot of damage. In conclusion, Spread will be your secondary weapon for the entire challenge. And last but not least, Charshot. I'll talk about it more in depth later as we can't buy it just yet, so for now, have it in the back of your mind. Any questions? Yes, James? May I go to the bathroom? The bosses in L1 are the Root Pack, Guppy Legrand, Cagney Carnation, Riven Crooks, and Hildeberg. Now, we obviously want to get rid of the hardest bosses first, to avoid wasting time on the easier ones. As a general rule of thumb, the hardest bosses are, to no one's surprise, airplane bosses. Not only do they excel in HP, therefore the fight tends to last longer, but they are either heavily RNG based or very difficult. These hard bosses are usually locked behind some easy ones. For example, we can't fight Riven Crooks until we previously beat the Root Pack first. With that in mind, our route for L1 will be like this, starting off with our big old pal Guppy Legrand. Guppy is our first boss in our route and he's as simple as it gets. Hopping around and bouncing off every corner makes his landing quite predictable. On top of that, we melt him with Spread, so both phases go by very quickly. And lastly, the third phase is all about using the gimmick we talked about earlier. It can be a bit harder to perform in the beginning, but once you get the rhythm of it, it's super satisfying. And once we beat the crap out of Guppy, we move on to the next one. And oh boy, I hate her. First phase of Hildeberg is all about her moving up and down while occasionally throwing projectiles every few seconds. and that's it. However, the real difficulty comes in the form of these guys. They'll be around in almost all phases, being a complete annoyance. I recommend taking out the green ones only if they happen to be in the direction you are currently shooting. Once we deal enough damage, we begin the second phase. The main attack here is this ball thing that randomly decides to shoot up or down and from the left or from the right. Because of this, we should always wait on the left side and react accordingly. But did you know that the orb doesn't have a hitbox at all? We can literally move inside it, meaning we have more space to maneuver. Just be careful with the pallets. And after getting through her first intermission, she transitions into her next phase, which gets bypassed almost entirely with the use of her super, because he has like 1 HP for some reason. Just make sure to time it at the same time he attacks to also get rid of the little stars. And after getting through her second intermission, she will transition to her last phase. While she transitions, it's important to not use her cards here, as she won't take any damage whatsoever. This happens in other transitions as well, but I will let you know when it happens. Now, this phase, at least for me, is very obnoxious. We have one eye tracking the stars and the other looking at the UFO's color to move properly. And it gets even nastier considering we can't hack the left side of the screen to avoid the UFOs like in regular mode, leaving us with nothing other than trying our best. Or so I thought. Notice how wide she becomes when she laughs? Well, her hitbox winds up too. This is a very common threat in some airplane bosses. In those cases, the X move will always deal way more damage than using a super. But we're gonna go a step further. Remember the UFOs appearing behind Hilda? For a brief moment, the hitboxes of both Hilda and the UFOs overlap with each other. And if we use an X move in this position and in that precise moment, we can deal massive damage. For why it happens, this is a full explanation. But TLDR, the X move gets staggered by hitting 2 moving hitboxes at once. We basically go from this to this. Now, granted, we need to get very lucky with the timing, and even then, relying too much on this could result in taking dumb hits, because we're staying still in one position. But even if one of them connects, it makes a huge difference. And with that, Hilda goes down and we move on to a much easier boss. Great vegetables. The root pack, the actual tutorial of the game. Don't worry though, I'll try to explain this boss as quickly as possible. Potato is pit for projectiles, and the last of them is parable. Very easy to kill by keeping your distance away with Roundabout or by staying behind him. Onion cries and covers the arena with tears. Don't try to parry any of them. Instead, only focus on dodging the tears by making tiny movements. Lastly, Carrot Guy, or the mini carrots he spawned can be easily eliminated. And the main attack, which are these 3 projectiles, aren't a problem with Smoke Bomb. 30 seconds, baby! Woo! We finish eating our veggies and continue with the frogs. Rivian Crooks is by far my favorite boss in the game. From the scenery to the gameplay to the music, oh, I love it. Now, their attacks on their own aren't that much of a problem, as they are very easy to deal with, but when they attack together, it can get overwhelming really fast. So here's what we're going to do. While hugging the left side, crouch, change to Roundabout, and start shooting backwards. Then all that is left to do is just dash through the punches 2 times. This is a simple yet effective motion, since we maintain a small hitbox while creating like a wall above us, killing the fireflies instantly. And we also keep our DPS high at all times while dodging. It's perfect. After a few cycles, we can take advantage of Rivian Crow's hitboxes overlapping with each other by using the X move of Roundabout to deal tremendous amounts of damage, as well as making this satisfying sound. After Ribi rolls to the other side, we begin the second phase. Here, Ribi keeps his punching attack, except it's a bit nerfed this time, but he also gets a new one, a projectile that bounces around the arena. It might seem like it bounces randomly, but they don't actually. The second projectile bounces in the spot where the first one didn't. For example, if the first one goes like this, then the second one will go like this. If we're really unlucky though, he can throw a third one, but its path is the same as the first one. Sorry if all of this seems confusing, but I haven't come up with a better explanation. Croaks, on the other hand, transforms into a fan, blowing us to the left side. Also, I chuckle every time I see his sprite move to the right in the middle of his attack. It's kinda goofy. All in all, this phase is not a big deal as long as we stay focused and use our dash carefully. After the second phase, they'll turn into a slot machine. The slot machine constantly spit out coins at our position until we parry the lever. Thank you. Then it'll randomly choose one of 3 attacks: the snake, the bison, or the tiger. We'll go from the easiest to the hardest, starting off with the snake attack. In the snake attack, we constantly jump between platforms that get very fast over time. To deal with it, we can just short hop for about 10 times. Then we can start doing full jumps until the attack is over. Next one is the bison attack. The platforms at the middle fire up or down randomly, and it gets pretty fast almost immediately, but using all of my brain power. I figured out that we can just dash to the wall to bypass this attack entirely. You can time it manually or use this little cap as reference to time it automatically. I know it seems rather weird, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes 100% consistent and way easier than doing it normally. And lastly, we have the tiger attack, where we constantly jump between platforms while a ball is bouncing on them. While there are 11 platforms we have to jump over, we can reduce the number to simply 9 by just smoke dashing at the end. A little silly trick that could save your run. And after 2 cycles, we end the fight. That means we have one boss left in Isle 1, which fortunately is the most consistent boss in the entire run. Since Cagney Carnation is the most consistent boss in the run, I'll be brief here. In the first phase, Cagney launches into the air seeds that grow 2 types of enemies. The blue ones act like a homing missile, and the pink ones grow into a flying flower. For this phase, we'll use the same strategy we did back in the first phase of Riven Croaks. While on the platform, hug the left side of the screen and shoot backwards with roundabout. For the pink seed, it's better to let it spawn and wait 1 cycle of the seed attack to take it out. We could also try to parry it, but it's very risky. At one point in the fight, he'll stop doing the seed attack and instead use 3 new moves. Though these attacks are easily avoided, and the only thing you need to know is that the boomerang is dodgeable by ducking, but you probably already knew that. Once he takes enough damage, he covers the complete ground with vines and begins his last phase. He'll randomly cover 1 or 2 platforms as well as spitting out projectiles. But what if I told you that all of this gets completely countered by just ducking? You see, the projectiles travel in a slight arc upward, which let us duck under them perfectly, and the vines are easily dealt with by jumping and performing an X move. This will auto-time it perfectly, and with that, we beat all the bosses in Isle 1. So let's not waste any more time and go right into Isle 2. Isle 2 is where things start to get considerably harder. Unlike Isle 1, every boss has at least one phase that's very problematic. Fortunately, we are upgrading our setup one last time with the 2 most important things for this challenge: the Super Art 2 and Charge Shot. These items are our saviors, and we want to get them as soon as possible. Our route for Isle 2 will be like this. First, we have to beat Jimmy, as he blocks our path to the Super Art 2, and once we acquire both Super Art 2 and Charge Shot, we can continue with Baroness Bonbon. But hold your horses, and make sure to talk to this guy to receive the mini-bombs. This is crucial to our next strategy. Bro, put the horse down, it's okay. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start with Jimmy the Great, or Akinator. Can he guess himself? Honestly, Jimmy has a lot going on. There's a bunch of cheesy strategies here, but let's start from the beginning with his first phase. Here, Jimmy has 3 distinguished attacks, and he will randomly pick one of them and stick to it the entire phase. Also, keep in mind that Jimmy throws his skull forward twice every 5 seconds. Just be mindful about it. Anywho, let's begin with the cat attack. Essentially, I begin waiting at the bottom until he throws his 2 cats. Then, I go all the way around the boss in mini-play form. Then, once I am at the top, I wait until he throws his 3rd cat, and once he throws it, I go back to the default position. This way, I make sure to get rid of almost all projectiles, leaving just a few to deal with. It seems kinda weird, I know, but also pretty cool, come on. And with the most difficult attack covered, the rest of them are pretty simple. The chest is manageable by staying at the bottom until he uses his skull attack, and the scimitars by pairing them or staying in mini-plane form until it's over. Once we deal enough damage, we begin the second mini-phase. Here, we pass through a few pillars that can be instantly destroyed with the mini-bombs. A few of them go by and we start the real 3rd phase. Now, you may think that we have to beat this phase normally. However, I found out a strategy to completely skip this phase, and this time it doesn't require any skill whatsoever. Start by positioning yourself in the center of the aisle, then go to the top and tap 2 times to the right. In this exact position, neither the ghost nor his eyes can catch us here. Then all we have to do is change to the mini-bombs and let them do the rest. Also, this ghost in particular gives me a heart attack every time he spawns. Anyways, I literally thought that I was the first one to discover this, like the guy who discovered fire. That was me. Then I look up the tech to see if anyone knew about this, and yeah, even the wiki has it. After our impressive performance, we begin the fourth phase. The way we want to go about this phase is by pairing the pink bullets and luring away the head of the Jimmies to the corners. But we're going to perform a little trick to make this phase a bit easier. First, we lure the head away from the Muppet by moving it 3 times. Then, while the Muppet is stepping back, we immediately have to go beneath him before he starts shooting. If done correctly, the bullets of the Muppet can reach us here, and the Jimmy's head will be far away. And when the head gets closer, we could pop a super and start repositioning ourselves to the left side. But if for some reason we don't have a super, we could do some shenanigans to get back. And with a bit more of damage, we move on to his last phase. Having a super here is very handy, as we end this phase almost immediately. Otherwise, the X-Mode will do just fine. And shortly after, Jimmy chokes on his pipe, showing us that smoking is indeed pretty bad for our health. And we end the fight. Once we get back to the overworld, we can go to the mausoleum and obtain the Super Art 2. At this point, you might be wondering, why didn't we get the Super Art 1 in Isle 1? In fact, I didn't even mention it before. Well, that's because it sucks ass. These are its upsides. Number 1, it looks pretty damn awesome. And that's it. The Super Art 1 deals 87 of damage, kind of the same as 2 charge shots, so it's not as insane as it looks. And we are better off using the X move of any weapon instead. But it gets even worse. When the animation of the super ends, it doesn't give us any iframes, meaning we'll probably end up taking unfair hits. In other words, I don't like it, it goes into the motherfucking trash. And the Super Art 3 is a strange case. While it deals decent damage, having to control Cuphead and the Ghost at the same time requires extreme finesse that doesn't outweigh the reward we get. Plus, we only get it at the end of the game, and plus, I would say it works only in specific phases. But on the flip side, it's incredibly fun to use, so I'll give it that. This leaves us with only one option, the Super Art 2. Essentially, it gives us iframes for 4.85 seconds. Simply put, it's a get out of jail free card. That alone is crazy good, but since we basically have a 5 seconds window, we can deal around 200 damage with spread. That's why this super is far more valuable than dealing an extra 87 of damage or requiring a master's degree to use it. With the Super Art 2 acquired, we have to go all the way back to a tutorial complete it and grab the 3 coins next to this guy. I know it seems a bit weird doing it now, but to be honest, if I died in Isle 3, the last thing I wanna do is the tutorial. I just want to get back there as fast as possible, even though it takes the same time, but anyways, with 4 coins, we can finally complete our setup with Charge Shot. Charge Shot has the highest damage in the game at 46, only second to spread at close range. But the most important thing is, knowing exactly its damage gives us the opportunity to perform setups, where we take advantage of certain transitions between phases, and this is crucial for this challenge, but you'll see it better in action. This weapon is so good that even the comments in the wiki are going crazy. And with our setup finally completed, we continue with Baroness Bonbon. Baroness Bonbon is kind of a special boss in the game, with a very unique first phase. Basically, Bonbon randomly chooses 3 out of 5 mini-bosses we have to defeat in order to progress to her last phase. We'll start with the hardest ones and end with the easy ones, starting off with the freaking Cupcake. He jumps around diagonally and upon landing leaves 3 waves at both sides. For some reason, their hitboxes linger more than they should. It's really this attack in particular that makes this boss unbearable. But since he moves in a specific pattern every time, you can see the optimal path on the screen, though use it more as a general idea. Also, he goes down after 5 charge shots and 1 uncharge shot. The damage is just on point. Thank you, Charge Shot. Next is the Waffle. She flies around in a sort of circular motion. Then, every 4 to 5 seconds, she splits into 9 pieces. It can be either in the 4 cardinal directions and then diagonal, or vice versa. Here, we should prioritize taking out the minions instead of dealing damage, so we don't end up in a lose-lose situation. Next up is Benson. Now, the way I like to think about this mini-boss is like this. This space is for him, and this space is for us. Staying in our space makes it easier to deal with his projectiles, as they don't reach that far. Next one is a candy corn, which moves like a horizontal 8 pattern. It can randomly go straight ahead or up in the middle, but the entire gimmick gets countered by Smoke Bomb. And lastly is Pac-Man. Yeah. At least he's trying though, don't be too harsh on him. Now, after taking out 3 mini-bosses, she will begin transitioning into her last phase. And in this short period of time, we can literally reduce half of her HP with spread. No skill required. After that, the castle will start to chase us down, with an occasional wind that we can parry. But the main threat are the Bonbon's heads, which can force us to do some crazy movement. However, since we reduce her HP in half, we can end this phase pretty quickly with 5 charge shots and a bit of spread with our super. Or we could also pop our super after her second head if we are unsure we will kill or not. Either way, she goes down and we move on to a hard boss. If not, the hardest boss in Isle 2. This freaking bird. Wally shoots an egg in a straight line, which, upon touching the edge of the screen, bursts into 5 more projectiles. But notice how 2 of the 5 projectiles briefly cover the left side of the screen? This prevents us from hugging the left side at all. And of course, Wally is accompanied by minions, because why not? Thankfully, they aren't that annoying, and we can farm some cards for free. Oh, and the other attack he has is just cosmetic, don't worry about it. The strategy to deal with all of this goes like this. If Wally is doing nothing, and we can see the birds at the distance, it's better to take them out and parry the pink one, if possible, as we can pop our super and end this phase ASAP. Otherwise, focus on dodging and staying in melee prime form at all times. It's important to conserve as much HP as possible, cause we're going to need it. After taking some damage, Wally starts throwing projectiles everywhere, which is a glimpse for what is coming next. But with a bit of focus and short movements, he goes down easily. Next phase is against Wally's son, Willy Warbles. I always struggle with this phase in particular, until I found something that blew my mind. Take a look, I'll put on screen 2 different attempts on the same boss, and even though you might not believe it at first, this phase is entirely scripted. Willy moves in a determined pattern every time you fight him. If you didn't know this, I can sense your reaction across the screen right now, which was probably the same as mine. Now, the road for expert mode goes like this. First, start by being around the bottom left corner, to enter once he starts to expand his X. Then, go out. Around this time, he'll shoot a pink bullet. Parry it and change to the mini-bombs to keep up the DPS. Right after that, go to the top left corner and prepare to be sweating when the X almost hit you. Then, deal a bit more damage and go back to the corner, but this time go in. And shortly after, pop a super. And that should be enough to end this phase. And once we get rid of his son, we enter the last phase. Here, Wally comes back with 2 birds holding him. The birds have the important role of moving Wally to either side of the screen. If Wally moves to the right, we can stay at the bottom left corner, shooting at the stretcher while being completely safe. We can also spam the X moves to deal a good chunk of damage, since look at that witness. And I want to take this moment to show you a cool trick. It's called the Luigi swap. The Luigi swap is performed by pressing the swap, the shoot and the X move button at the same time. This way, we keep our DPS without ever stopping. This makes a slight difference, but a difference nonetheless. But as I said before, it's really hard to perform without messing up, so only do it if you can execute it consistently. Now, what if the birds decide to move Wally to the left side? Well, we have no other choice but to be above him, and being above him means we have to deal with the most atrocious attack in the game. This attack is completely RNG based, and I don't know how it works, maybe because I'm a little bit dumb, but regardless, I really advise staying in melee form until the attack is over, and just pray to the RNG gods. Oh, and remember, never get too close to Wally, because look at this hitbox. Like, I'm not even touching him, hello? In conclusion, if I have the opportunity to just gently wrap my hands around his neck and see the light go out of his eyes, let's put it this way, I would. Grim is next on our list, and he's the first boss where playing in expert mode is significantly easier than in regular mode. You see, the clouds move to the right side of the screen. This makes our first phase a bit harder because we're dodging his attacks plus staying away from him. But in later phases, it's much easier to deal with because we're only focusing on dodging and nothing else. That's why regular mode is a bit harder in general. But let's go back on track and start with his most annoying attack, the fireballs. At first glance, the fireball seems like any other attack, but while taking a closer look, I noticed that they have the same pattern as previous attacks in his second phase, where the first attack goes in one direction and the other fills in the spaces. He could also shoot 2 at the same time that crisscross each other, but in my experience, I think I've seen this attack once, so it's unlikely he will use it. And for the others, we can easily bait the ring attack by staying at the bottom or the top, and for the tail attack, we just have to not stay in the middle, and since we are already doing that anyway, it's not a big deal. And finally folks, in this phase, we are going to use Charge Shot to its fullest potential. Charge Shot deals 46 of damage, and in this case, Grim has a total of 684 HP threshold in his first phase. Essentially, it takes 15 charge shots to transition to the second phase, meaning we would have to deal 14 charge shots and wait until he does his longest attack, in this case the fireball attack, to then deal as much damage as possible. This lowers the length of the next phases, which are most likely the harder ones. But interestingly enough, not all the bosses behave this way. Some of them will immediately transition, regardless of anything else, but we're going to take advantage of the ones that can transition until their animation is over. Afterwards, we begin the second phase. Our best bet here is to stay at the top corners, since they are more likely to jump there. Then, as soon as you hear their sound cue, prepare to jump as high as possible. This will most likely counter the attack completely, but it's RNG. Additionally, don't forget to use the lock-on feature to damage Grim if you are staying close to him. Don't get too close though. Overall, a stressful phase, so don't hesitate to pop a super if the situation needs it. Trust me, you won't regret it. After some charge shots, he goes down and starts to transition to his last phase. But something unusual happens. His hitbox is still active, despite being in his defeated animation, and if we shoot at his head, we can deal some extra damage for free, which shortens the last phase significantly. Now, if you think it couldn't get harder than that, then you'll be right. It doesn't. Grim throws a projectile that, upon receiving damage, explodes into 4 more projectiles in a cross pattern. But since we have charge shot, we get to decide when to shoot, so it's unlikely we would hit any projectile at all, and not too long after we end the fight. Alright, one boss left. Let's wrap it up with our last boss in AL2, Beppy the Clown. The first phase of Beppy is nothing to write home about, because we completely countered the gimmick of the fight with Smoke Bomb. We only have to be a bit careful of the ducks holding light bulbs. Now, remember that trick we did 5 minutes ago? Well, we're doing it again. Since Beppy goes down in 7 charge shots, we can deal 6 charge shots and wait until he has to do another lunge. Then, we try to deal as much damage as possible, and after that, we go right into the second phase. The balloon dogs are easy to take out, and for the roller coaster, we can see it in the background before it enters the arena. Now, we could spam a bunch of EX moves to end this phase pretty quickly, but then it hit me. Beppy's third phase is obnoxious because of the coaster, not the horses. And since it carries over from the second phase, is there a way to leave the coaster behind and just deal with the horses? The answer, my friend, is yes. With an asterisk. Maybe a little bit bigger. Here is what I came up with. After he transitions to his second phase, I deal 1 extra charge shot. Then, my only focus is to kill the balloon dogs and dodge the passengers. Damaging the boss is secondary. After the screen is cleared, I go to the middle and jump as high as possible. Then, I use the X move of spread twice. This leaves him very low, but I don't kill him just yet. I wait until the coaster appears for the second time. Then, I go to the middle and do the same trick again. And with a bit of spread, he is down. If done properly, the coaster will take a while to get back, and we are left with only the horses. I can't emphasize this enough, but it's really important to maintain the DPS by charging charge shots between phases. We should try to apply this in every boss, but it's especially important here, as we don't have much time until the coaster comes back. Now, if he goes with the green horse, we can delete him with spread, but things are different if he goes with the yellow horse. The yellow horse has a shorter attack, meaning we'll not kill him in 1 rotation. But if we previously dealt 2 charge shots between his cycles, we can take him out before the coaster appears. And with that, we beat the third phase of Beppy, without the coaster. We essentially turn one of the most difficult phases into one of the easiest ones. And it better happen in your run, cause I've been testing this shit for a long ass time that I'm about to lose my mind. Even though this strategy is pretty consistent, we can sometimes screw it up and kill him before the coaster appears, leaving a normal third phase. But I can give you one niche tip. With a somewhat precise timing, you can go through the roller coaster and the obstacles, thanks to Smoke Bomb. The timing is pretty tight though, so use it as a last resort. Finally, last phase of Beppy is really easy. Our strategy here is to ignore the penguins completely and let the coaster handle them. This way, we only focus on damaging Beppy, so he only attacks once. This is where the Super R2 comes into play. When Beppy spits out the 4 penguins, we're going to pop our super at the second or third projectile. By doing this, we can ignore the penguins completely and Beppy goes down in 1 cycle. And with that, we beat all the bosses in IL2. Definitely harder than IL1 in every possible way, but by getting the Super R2 and Charge Shot, it made it easier for sure. But don't get too comfortable, as we have to complete the hardest IL yet. IL3. The horrors of Cuphead. One silly mistake and you lose 40 minutes of your life. Also, this IL is special. There are 7 bosses instead of the usual 5, meaning we have a higher chance to screw it all up. But the scariest part is that this IL has 2 run killers. In one, we have to prove our raw skill, and in the other, we have to go to charge again. Essentially, a pick your poison situation. And with that out of the way, this is our final route, beginning with Briny Beard. The main obstacle we notice right away is the barrel above us. Basically, if he's looking down and we are below him, it will go straight down. This happens every 5 seconds, so always keep an eye on him. Briny, on the other hand, has one move for now, where he pulls up a squid and shoots a few projectiles at our position. Nothing too crazy, at least for now. After dealing a bit of damage, the real phase begins, as Briny summons one of 3 sea animals. These are the squid, the shark, and the dogs. The squid spawns at the center of the arena, dropping ink sporadically. The ink doesn't deal damage, but it will darken the screen pretty quickly, but with one charge shot and a bit of roundabout, we can take him out almost instantly. Most of the time, we would kill him without giving him a chance to do anything. The shark enters the arena abruptly and covers almost all of it, forcing us to stay on the right side of the screen. Fortunately, we can see him in the balcony sneaking in, so it's important to get the barrel in cooldown before he attacks. This is also a good time to mention that the ship doesn't have a hitbox, so don't worry about hacking it if you need to. The last sea animal are the dogs. 4 dogs spawn at the right side of the screen, but we can just kill them or ignore them. Simultaneously with these attacks, the boat randomly spits cannonballs across the arena, and this alone is the reason to why I hate him so much. It's really this attack in particular that glues all the others together, making him the hardest, easiest boss in Isle 3. After a bit more of damage, Branny drowns. We begin the last phase. The boat starts spitting out 2 looping fireballs across the arena, which is easily dealt with by ducking in these exact spots. Ducking there makes the fireballs barely miss, and there's no way to mess it up. After 2 fireballs, he will fire a laser beam that covers the middle of the screen, forcing us to either parry it over and over again, or by simply ducking. Ducking might seem like the way to go, but what about the barrel? Wouldn't he crush us easily? Well, dear viewer, as it turns out, it doesn't. The hitbox of Cuphead is a bit odd. If we dash while crouching, the hitbox doesn't go up at all, even though it seems like we're standing up. This tech is also applied in other things, like for example, speedruns. Okay, enough of this guy. It's time to take out our first run killer. Cala Maria has 2 main problems, being kinda complex and having a lot of RNG involved, so you better step in with this one. It'll be a long one, but an important one, I promise. Cala Maria herself has only 2 attacks. In the first one, she pulls out a fish, either yellow or red. The yellow one throws a projectile twice. This projectile tracks us for a bit, but by doing a loop-like formation, we can dodge it easily. The red one spits out 4 waves of 5 or 6 projectiles. This one is way easier to deal with, as we can parry some of them. When either fish attack is over, she throws it away in the middle. This covers a lot of space, so don't underestimate it. Her other attack is basically spitting out 3 ghosts that charge at our current position, forcing us to bait them moving up or down constantly. But much like Brainybeard, she can accompany these attacks with 3 sea animals. These are the seahorse, the turtle, and the pufferfish. A quick rundown. The seahorse spits out water upwards while chasing us constantly. The pufferfish are obstacles that float upwards. And lastly is the worst one, the turtle. He comes from the right side of the screen and moves all the way to the left while firing bombs 3 times that explode into 8 projectiles. With that being said, let's quickly go over the most complicated combos. First, we have the seahorse and ghost combo. To deal with this combo, we should always hack the left side before the seahorse appears. This forces the seahorse to stay in one position instead of wiggling around. And after that, we should stay in mini plane form and move up and down like we normally do. Think of it as if it's the fan attack from Ruby in his second phase. It behaves like that. The second combo is the turtle and the golden fish. The complicated part being the second fish, since it has the same timing as the third bullet of the turtle, but we can completely counter it by going under the bullet, in and out while in mini plane form. The last one is the turtle and the ghost. Every time the ghost charges, always dodge downwards. This way, we can guarantee to dodge the bullets almost every time. For the other combo she has, as dumb as it might sound, staying in melee plane form and parrying any projectile is the best we can do. After 2 or 3 cycles, we continue with phase 2. In the second phase, Cala Maria introduces a new attack for the rest of the fight, which consists of a beam that turns us into stone. To break free, we need to perform exactly 22 inputs. Moving in any direction is not enough. We need to spam as many inputs as possible. I even messed around in the options to add more inputs so I could free myself faster, but it didn't make any meaningful difference. Though, very important. Don't end your spamming with the parry button. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in it and you can't immediately change to mini plane form. For the love of God, don't forget about it. Cala Maria combines her stone gaze with a lot of eels, each of them shooting 5 projectiles. Fortunately, we haven't used any cards until now for a reason. Wait until some eels spawn and go all in with a super. Make sure to aim at her chest to kill the eels that are a bit far away. This will completely negate the second phase, and we only need a bit more damage to move on to the third phase. Also, really quickly, I found out that you can go behind Cala Maria and not take any hits. And to deal damage, we can use the whetstone charm, which I find pretty neat. Next video, whetstone only? No. Finally, last phase. We travel inside a cave that's plagued with random obstacles we have to squeeze through. Then, the snakes will also start spitting out projectiles in a wave-like pattern. All of this can be dealt with in 2 ways, normally or cheesily. If you're dealing with her normally, don't be afraid of getting too close to the bottom or the top. The hitboxes are not as strict as they seem. The other tip is to not use the super the wrong way. What I mean by this is don't use it when you're about to get hit by her stone gaze, or else you'll waste 5 cards and take a hit anyway. If you really need to use it defensively, try to pop it with the environment. to gain the E-frames and dodge her stone gaze completely. The cheesy strategy consists of being literally in front of her. In this position, neither the skulls nor her stone gaze are a problem, since these moves spawn slightly away from her, leaving this small gap to maneuver. The only threat are the pillars, and we must look behind this little gap to react accordingly. And it's not as easy as it seems. If you find the pillars hard to dodge, you can opt to stay in mini-plane form. Granted, you'll lose 50% of your damage, but that also means that you would probably never end up taking a hit. Now, if you ask me, I would say try to practice the cheese strategy if you attempt this challenge. I died here so many times, because I was a coward who was too scared of getting too close and screw it up. You imbecile. Overall, see what suits you best. One rank killer goes down, and we make our way to the next one. But first, we need to take out a little bee. Interestingly enough, Honey Bottoms is our second boss, where the platforms are the primary difficulty, but this time it's even worse. The big difference between this fight and the one with Grim is that there are times where you could get a lot of platforms on one side but scarcely any on the other, making the fight rely heavily on the RNG. But first, we need to take out his guard. He essentially moves around while leaving bombs that explode into 8 projectiles. Since he'll go down in only 8 charge shots, prioritize dodging and killing the bees. After taking care of the guard, we begin the fight against Honey Bottoms. From the 3 attacks she has, the easiest ones are the magic ones, like the magic ball that follow us around for a bit and that's it. It's incredibly slow and can be infinitely parried. In the other spell, she summons a triangle that shoots 3 projectiles from the tips 3 times. This one can be quite problematic, but if we take a closer look, the attack spawns at our position, meaning it's better to let it spawn at the top or the bottom corners of the screen. Just focus on dodging until the attack is really over. Trust me, you could get hit in some of the most stupidest ways possible. The last attack consists of her throwing her head at the middle of the screen, and basically start to spitting out projectiles to both sides 2 times in an S letter-like pattern. The way I like to deal with this attack is by jumping twice and dropping one below. I do this in case I have a good RNG with the platforms. If I see that luck isn't on my side, I'll just bite the bullet and try to bait it as best as I can. And with all of her attacks covered, we can proceed to her next phase. And by proceed I mean skip it completely. Since Honey Bottoms goes down after 10 charge shots, you have to deal 9 charge shots and wait until her longest attack, which is the head one, to maximize damage. Unfortunately, we don't have to wait until she randomly decides to go with that specific attack. If she starts with her head attack, she then will pick a random spell, let's say the triangle one. After that, she will use her head attack again to continue with the second spell she didn't use before, being the ball one, and she will repeat this exact process until we hit her 10 times. Now that we know what she's going to do next, we can easily prepare in advance and act accordingly. However, before we continue to the third phase, I want to mention a funny fact. This phase is a lot easier compared to regular mode. In regular mode, you'll have to deal with each magic attack twice, and that makes a world of difference. Furthermore, in regular mode, you don't exactly know what attack she's going to use next. This strict pattern of attacks is only presented in expert mode. Honestly, thank God these bosses weren't annoying, otherwise I would not be here today. After our setup with charge shot, Honey Bottoms will start to transition to her last phase. Remember to keep up the DPS by dealing 1 extra charge shot before melting her with spread. This way we can completely deny the third phase, and even if she survives, she will be very low on HP that we can use her super to end this phase safely. We take out the bee and continue with our second run killer. As I said before, Dr. Carl has little to no RNG. It's all about raw skill. Essentially, every time we die, 2 things happened. First, we waste 40 minutes of our lives, and second, we are left seeing the game over screen, reminding us that we died because of a skill issue. And that hurts, man. However, there are some tips here and there to make this living hell a little bit easier. And I guess for the first time, it might be better to go exactly step by step. At the start of the fight, turn into mini-plane form and fly over to his antenna, touching the top of the screen. Get as close as you can and delete that shit before it attacks. After that, take out 2 missiles and parry the pink cylinder. Then, the only thing left is to parry the cylinder until we have 5 cars. Since the cylinder is always pink, we basically have a free card generator. Once we have 5 cars, we can pop our super and aim at his chest. This way, we take out his chest and his bottom part at the same time. And once the heart pops out, focus on eliminating the bombs first before anything else, as these bombs act like a homing missile, and they get quicker if we don't take them out. The other 2 attacks you might encounter are a magnet that tries to screw up our movement element, and an arm that, after leaving the screen, leaves behind 3 projectiles. For these 2 moves, we have to be extra careful in the middle. To recap, destroy the top first at the start of the fight, then parry the cylinders to pop a super and take out the 2 parts left. And finally, prioritize the bombs over dealing damage and be mindful of his other 2 moves. Once we take out his heart, we continue with phase 2. Now, the head isn't really a problem. The annoying thing here are the bombs. Even though they can be eliminated with 1 hit of the mini bombs, 1 mishit and we could have 2 bombs chasing us, which you know what happens. Thankfully, if the bombs touch each other, they instantly explode, but only do it as a last resort. This phase in general is a bit long and boring because of the little damage we do to him, but we're trying to play as safely as possible, and in the process we get 5 extra guards, which will come very in handy. Now, he only has 1 main attack, the Chaos Emerald, gems. Either gem will start a burst of projectiles covering the entire screen. The blue one is generous and throws its projectiles lower, but the red one, full of hatred, will make any tiny gap seem millimeter. Talking about gaps, what about these folds? Well, they appear from the top or the bottom, and have the characteristic of eventually closing off and leaving us with no escape if we take too long. And the cherry on top is the pole, an element of the background. I think I'm the first person to ever die because of it, but admittedly, it was kinda funny. For the present me, obviously. The past one is still fuming. Now, with 5 cards at our disposal, the logical move might be using them to end the phase faster, which is not a bad idea considering we get plenty of cards. But what about using it defensively? If we end up in a tough situation, we could use it right there to get the invul frames and evade a potential hit. And if you ask me, I think the latter is the right approach. But if you prefer dealing more damage to end this phase faster, that's completely valid too. Do your thing, my friend. Eventually, with a lot of focus and insane movement, Dr. Cal goes down. And what a boss, honestly. This boss might be the hardest one yet. Unfortunately for us, there are 3 more bosses left. So let's continue with Sally stage play. Sally is my second favorite boss in the game. The way this boss is executed visually is stunning, and I applaud Studio AMDHR for making this boss as marvelous as it is. Sadly for Sally, see what I did there? All of her phases are not difficult at all. Starting off with her first phase, Sally has 4 different moves, yet all of them feel incredibly lackluster for some reason. The only problematic one is when she disappears, as it can land directly above us or to the sides. Because of this, it's better to stay in the middle and dash away when we see her falling down. And after some damage, she transitions to her second phase. Now, the second phase is kinda hard. While she keeps her 2 air attacks, she gets a new one, where she covers the arena with mouses on each side that travel all the way to the ceiling to then drop down if we're under it. This combined with the baby in the background throwing milk bottles can get very tricky. However, since this phase is the only one that's a bit tough, we can use her super to get out of sticky situations. Other than that, she goes down fairly quickly. Continuing with the third phase, Sally has 3 new attacks, and we can see which of them she will use next at the top left corner. Isn't she lovely? All of these attacks are kinda obvious and simple to deal with, and we can end this phase very quickly by positioning underneath her to melt her with spread. As a side note, I like the secret phase a lot more, because it makes it a bit harder. You may ask, am I complaining about the phase being too easy? Yes, Sally has a lot of potential, and I think this boss in general, but especially phase 3, could have some other gimmick or be harder in general. Despite all of this, I love all the other things this boss has to offer. And shortly after, we begin the last phase. Even though there's a parasol constantly chasing us, plus the flowers from the crowd, it's not something that will get you even remotely nervous. Considering she goes down in 6 charge shots, the fight is rather short. Also, don't forget to use the X move to deal more damage or to stall in the air if needed. Eventually, Sally goes down, and we continue with a boss that could get us in trouble. Now, the main gimmick we notice right away is the platform we are standing on. The platform can be moved to either side by parrying their bolts, or if it gets parried by the pumpkins. The pumpkins appear on either side of the screen. They carry an ingot that's always pink, and they drop it at the platform's vault. Since a lot of people play this phase very differently from one another, I want to show you how I do it. Once the fight begins, I deal 2 charge shots. After that, I move to the edge of the platform and change to spread while aiming at this angle. Not only do I keep the DPS, but I also eliminate all the projectiles before they reach me. And about the pumpkins, I'll wait for the ingot to be somewhat close to me and spam the jump button. The parry has a large number of active frames, so even if I do it too early, there's a good chance I'll still parry it. Now, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it looks scary, because it does. I'm putting myself at risk of taking a hit every few seconds. Despite that, I never end up taking a hit, and it's really easy to perform, like actual Guppy Legrand difficulty, so I could say the trade-off was worth it. And after that, we continue with the second phase. The second phase is a bit harder, the hard part being the pumpkins, obviously. We should try to stay in the middle and wait for him to pop out, to then move accordingly. If we can't do that, we can position ourselves at the edges of the platform, but if somehow we end up in a really bad spot, we should instantly pop our super. The number of cards we can get throughout this boss is a lot, which means don't worry about popping a super multiple times in this boss. And not too long after that, we go right into the third phase. Just as a side note, wait until his animation is completely over, because for some reason the hitbox lingers for a bit. It reminds me of someone else. Continuing with the third phase, two ghouls appear on each side and one of them starts to vomit lightning, which forces us to move to the opposite side. The pumpkins are gone for now and are replaced with a ghost that follow us until we kill it. Now, a small pro-gamer tip from this guy. Go to either side, deal one charge shot and use spread while jumping constantly to deal as much damage as possible. If done correctly, we should kill one of the ghouls before they even do anything, leaving just one ghoul to deal with. It's really that simple. From here, we make our way slowly but surely and eventually we take him out. Now, the last phase is very free. Aside from being able to literally farm cards for free, if we wait until the ring attack is over to parry his tail, we are left with an attack that's not intimidating at all. It also doesn't help that he goes down in only 4 charge shots, making this phase the shortest in the main game, I think. Shortly after, we take out the train and we continue with our final boss for Isle 3, Tom and Jerry. Werner Werman is our last boss in Isle 3, having 2 attacks that are super easy to dodge with Smoke Bomb. However, the only problematic attack are the Cherry Bombs, but we can stall in the air with a dash, an X move or both even. Now, since the second phase is a lot harder, we are going to use the trick with Charge Shot once again. Deal exactly 12 charge shots and wait until he performs any attack honestly. Then, try to deal as many charge shots as you can. After that, Werner moves to the middle of the screen and starts his second phase. The main gimmick here are the bottle caps that appear at each side of the screen. These things will randomly extend at each side and can even fully extend in one side. And combined with Werner fighting flamethrowers at both sides going up or down, I end up feeling kinda overwhelmed. But while doing research for this video, I found something that left me speechless. See these flames right here? You would think they are equally placed, leaving no room to duck under them, right? Well, you'd be wrong. For some reason, the right one is literally 1 pixel above, leaving enough space to duck under it. Why is it like this? I don't know. Is it useful? Absolutely. Anyways, if at any moment we feel uncomfortable, we can just pop our super, since it's not really necessary for the next phase. In this last phase, the cat has 2 attacks that are very underwhelming. Every attack is very telegraphed, and we can shorten this phase by doing the spread trick. And as you can see on the screen, it's kinda obvious why we'll place this boss at the bottom of our priority. But I think it'll be way more fun and challenging if in next mode the bottle caps carried over the second phase. Like, that's a real threat right there. The plot twist at the end revealing that the mouse controls the cat gets me every time though. With Isle 3 finally completed, our collection of plushies is almost completed too. And we continue with our last extra isle. Inkhell has the last 2 bosses in the game, and we can free ourselves from this misery. I remember being very stressed out and feeling like my heart was going to explode. Cause remember, we're almost 1 hour into the run. Failing at this point is not an option. But before we face Satan, we must take down his right hand, King Dice. The gimmick of this fight is fairly simple. There are 9 mini-bosses spread around the board, and every 3 spaces there will be safe spaces, meaning we only have to take out 3 out of 9 mini-bosses in total. There are also random hearts in every section, and you should always land on them, unless it's number 6 or 9. It's just not worth the hassle. Now, to land on a specific mini-boss, I have this rule in my mind. If I want to roll out the number 3, I'll make a long jump in the number that's far away. This will auto-time it perfectly with the number I want. Here, I wanted the number 2, and these are the numbers that came before it. If I jump in this number, I'll always land on the third one. See what I mean? With that said, let's quickly go over the mini bosses and rule out the hardest ones. In the first section, we have the cigar, the poker chips, and the drinks. We can immediately rule out the cigar, as it's the hardest one among the 3, and between these other 2, I recommend the drinks, as they are extremely easy. But the poker chips are a good option too, as a smoke bomb makes a huge difference. For the second section, we rule out the dominoes and the horse. The dominoes is the hardest, and the horse is an airplane boss. I don't have to say anything else really. Meaning, we are left with the bunny. It's a lot easier than it seems, since we literally counter his main attack with smoke bomb. The only tricky part is his other attack, but nothing too crazy. And lastly, the third section. The first 2 bosses are stupid easy. The gimmick of the first boss is entirely countered by smoke bomb, and the second one is countered by himself. Like, he literally doesn't do anything. Lastly, we have the monkey. We obviously ruled him out because it's an airplane boss. But if you ask me, I wouldn't mind if they turn this mini boss into an an actual boss. The gimmick of the fight matching cards is very unique. I love it. And after taking out 3 mini-bosses, we can start the fight against King Dice himself. Now, King Dice's main attack has a hidden rule we must follow. Basically, we should only use the dash when we see 4 cards in a row. Otherwise, we would end up taking a hit when they appear. While it is technically possible without a dash, it's very hard. And combined with the stress of the run, is not viable at all. The only exception to this rule is if he starts with the 3 black cards at the beginning, but the 4 cards in a row won't appear later. Knowing this rule makes the fight pretty straightforward, and if we take into account that we can just pop a super at any given moment, it makes it much easier. Additionally, I'll show you a trick that's cool and useless at the same time. If we don't want to interact with this boss at all, we can simply stay behind his hands. Dissipates the attack completely, and we can deal damage within his cycles. Unfortunately, we don't deal a significant amount of damage, meaning we could easily end this fight in a whopping 8 minutes. With King Dice down, we have our final boss between us and the victory. The first phase of the devil has a lot going on. There are 6 attacks in total, 3 being physical and 3 being magical. Yet, the hardest part in this phase are the purple demons that travel all across the screen. Fortunately, we can see them in the background sneaking in, so always have an eye on them to check from which side they're going to appear. Now, all magic attacks share the same approach, pairing its pink component, always keeping an eye on the purple demons, and focusing on dodging instead of dealing damage. But they have their small differences. For example, for the fireable one, it's mandatory to parry the pink flame and performing small jumps between each flame until the attack is over, or the hexagon one that's much easier to deal with by staying at the corners. Now, what about his physical attacks? In the first one, he turns into a spider and slams the ground between 3, 4 or 5 times, but we can simply dash to the side when he's about to attack. In the other one, he turns into a serpent and forces us to the corner. Even if there's a demon coming in our way, we can stall in the air with both a dash and an X move. We can also attack in these spots, but why? And finally, his last attack consists of him clapping the middle of the screen. This is the hardest one to dodge because the timing is pretty tight, but we can try to jump as soon as his arms are not in the screen. Then we can use a dash or an X move to stall in the air. The second phase is the easiest by far. We now stand on a few float platforms. On these platforms, there'll be poker chips falling from above onto them. And that's like the hard part of this phase. For the bomb, don't underestimate its radius. It's enormous. Either parry it or stay as far away as possible. For the axe, I recommend staying in these 2 platforms, and jumping once will dodge the attack completely. If we are at the corners, we have to jump earlier or move to the closest platform. And a bit more damage later, and we go right into the third phase. This one is the complete opposite. If the second phase was chill, this one is very hectic. There's so much going on. There are 3 platforms now, flying purple demons that will respawn and annoying bats that fly out of position. But here's the strategy. The purple guys will go down with 1 charge shot and 1 uncharged shot, so killing them every 6 seconds at each side is crucial. Even if you can't kill it right away because of the poker chips blocking our way, take them out as soon as you can. You don't really want 2 purple demons at each side. After that, we take out the bats with spread while doing small jumps, all while keeping an eye on the chips falling out. And all of this combined with the stress and pressure of the run could easily mess you up, and for me, it definitely did. As you can see, I died at the final boss, and as strange as it sounds, it didn't bother me that much. Well, besides from the screaming. I thought that dying here meant that I could easily get back, right? Right? Real talk now. I really thought this challenge wasn't gonna get more difficult after dying here, because thinking about it, I literally beat all these bosses all the time perfectly. It's just this one at the end. But the thing that really held me back wasn't the mechanics, it was my mental. At that point, every death was just a reminder of how close I was to being done with this challenge. And as a result, my performance started to deteriorate, slowly but surely. But the moment I descended into complete madness, I would say it was when I died at Werner Werman, after defeating all the hard bosses in AL3. Needless to say, I was a little frustrated. So I decided to punish myself by isolating from others and from things I enjoy in order to end this challenge as soon as possible, which turned into a recipe for a miserable experience. It really sucks to be in that position, because you are surrounded by only negative thoughts looping inside your head. And yet, I kept going. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I started caring less and less about whether I won or lost. Like, dying in all 3 sucked for sure, but that didn't stop me from keeping on trying. It can get really tough sometimes, I won't lie. But even then, I kept pushing to prove myself. And I'm glad I did, because at the end of the day, the only way you can truly lose is if you give up. If you focus on trying to improve as much as possible, regardless of the result, then it's only a matter of time before you succeed. And that's how my journey ended. Talk about a drama queen at the end. But tell me, are you going to attempt this challenge? It's intimidating for sure, but also really fun, in a twisted way. Let me know all about it in the comments. Now, a few last things. A big shout out to The Bones 5. He's the reason this video exists in the first place. His video will be linked in the description. And a big thank you to the people who worked at the wiki and the people who ripped the sprites from Cuphead. These are the primary sources I used the most to make this video. Thank you guys so much. By the way, this video took months to make, as it's my first video ever. So if you enjoyed the video or got some value out of it, I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Like, grab it and just... That's all for me today. Thank you so much for watching till the end. It means a lot to me. Take care guys, bye bye!